Number 1. When I was 18, I lived in a young person's homeless hostel. To those of you who have never experienced one, they are based all the way across the UK and are for 15 to 19-year-olds who have been made unintentionally homeless. My mother had moved abroad and my father is useless. A quick brief history of the hostel may be useful here. Whilst I was living there were a total of 6 of us, me being the oldest, and the youngest was a 15-year-old boy who was still in school. The building was a Victorian townhouse, which consisted of 3 floors, 2 bedrooms to each floor, myself at the very top, and a basement which the garden had been dug out around to house the kitchen, living room, and a small garden area. As this house was solely for young people, the building had CCTV and an 8-foot sealed wall around the back garden for extra safety. One night, I was woken at 2 AM to a knock on the door, which was common as I lived with 3 other girls at the time who wanted to borrow clothes, makeup, etc., so I didn't think too much of it. I opened the door to find it was the youngest resident of the hostel, looking clearly shaken. He explained that he was woken by a loud banging coming from the window that overlooked the back garden, so I told him we would both go and look together. As we got to the living room, it was clear there was someone on the other side of the window. We sheepishly opened the curtains to find a man in his mid to late 20s, covered in blood, pushed against the window inside of our sealed garden. I remember the sheer look of relief on his face to see that people were home. He kept begging us to let him in, as he was being chased. I shouted through the window that he couldn't come in, as it was a young person's hostel and everyone inside was under the age of 18, but he continued to beg. I was very concerned about the amount of blood he had on him and offered to call an ambulance. This is when his face changed to a small smile and he very calmly told me, "Oh no, it's okay. This isn't my blood." This is where we opted on phoning the police instead. Number 2. This all happened when I was about 16, in high school, and I was working my first part-time job at a fast food restaurant located right off the highway, and it wasn't uncommon to get a lot of crazy customers. I arrived at work one day and was surprised to see my schedule for the week had changed, giving me a graveyard shift on a Friday night. The thought of being at this place overnight gave me the creeps, and I thought my manager was insane for making the youngest employee take a night shift. But it wasn't a school night, and I didn't want to seem like a baby, so I accepted the shift. When the night came, it was just me and another co-worker, who was a large man and very friendly, so I felt more safe with him there. Before leaving, my manager gave me the rundown on how the night was supposed to go. At 11 PM, I was to lock the doors and we would only be taking drive-through orders. But on this particular night, just my luck, one of the main doors had been broken and wouldn't lock properly. If anyone comes in, just tell them they can't be in the lobby and to order through the drive-through. After these words of wisdom, my manager went home to the comfort of his bed and I started my long night. Being slightly paranoid and not used to the new shift, every noise I heard from outside made me jump. A few times, some customers came in through the unlocked door, but quickly and politely left after I asked them to use the drive-through. When it reached about 1 in the morning, I was in the back of the store organising boxes when I heard the slam of the heavy door close. I ran to the front to tell whoever it was to get out, but I saw no one. I walked into the lobby and looked around but didn't see anyone there. "Did you hear someone come in?" I asked my co-worker as he also came to investigate. "Maybe they left, but I'll check the bathroom to be safe," he said as he opened the men's bathroom, then quickly came back out. "Nope, no one in there. You should go check the girls' bathroom," he advised. I agreed and opened the door to the woman's bathroom. At first, I didn't see anything, so I called out, "Anyone in here?" No response. To double check, I took a few steps into the bathroom, and at this time, I was able to see some feet behind a stall. The stall door was wide open, and as I got closer, I was able to see inside. My stomach instantly sank. I caught eyes with a woman with long tangled brown hair crouched next to the toilet with a needle in her arm. She jumped up out of surprise and ripped the needle out of her arm, squirting blood all over the floor. She raised the needle over her head and started to move towards me. I screamed and ran as fast as I could out of the bathroom and past my co-worker. I whipped around just in time to see her run out of the door. My heart was racing and I was scared to death and ended up going home right after. I quit the next day. So, lady shooting up in the bathroom at 1 in the morning, let's not meet again. Number 3. This happened in Seawickley, PA in 1996. I was 6 years old. It was the end of July and we went to visit my grandmother. I remember these dates because it was only a couple of days after arriving to my grandmother's that the Atlanta Olympic bombings happened. Anyways, I always loved visiting my grandmother. My grandmother is a true crime fanatic, and my favourite thing to do was stay up late and watch America's Most Wanted with her. I was always a little on edge when I was visiting. It probably had a lot to do with the television I was watching. But her small town home on the side of a mountain seemed much spookier than the city I lived in. That week, we went into the larger town of Seawickley to do some shopping. I had a habit of getting lost in stores. Part of it was my fault. My curiosity would get the best of me, and I would wander off. Most of it was my mother's, who was horrible at looking after me. I realised pretty quickly that my mother was no longer in the store, so I ran out onto the sidewalk trying my best to find her. A man who looked like he was in his late 40s approached me and asked me if I was lost. I told him no, my mother is close. He tells me he is a policeman and he can take me to the station to colour while he tries to find my mum. I remember finding it odd that he was a policeman without a uniform. I declined his offer and started to walk away. He then grabbed my arm and said that if I don't like colouring, we could bake some cookies at the police station. I knew right then what he was trying to do, because I knew there wasn't an oven at a police station. I don't know why the oven comment stuck out so much compared to the rest, but I immediately bolted across the street into another shop. I was obviously quite shaken, and the cashier let me stay behind the counter until they could track down my mum. I told my mother exactly what happened. I didn't think she believed me at the time, but I think she just ignored it because she didn't want to blame herself for putting her child in danger. I'm really glad my grandmother let me stay up and watch America's Most Wanted with her. I think I would have been much more naive in that situation if danger wasn't fresh on my mind. I often wonder where that man is now, and if there were any victims. He was definitely confident in his approach, which makes me believe this wasn't his first time he fronted as a policeman. Number 4. I remember when I was young, like 12 or 13 maybe, and a friend of mine and me were out walking our dogs. She'd just gotten herself a puppy around a month back, and it was late, so we decided to take her and my dog while walking and talking about boys. We lived in a tiny town, more like a village or something, around 300 houses or so, and lots of forest. Basically, everyone knew everyone else, so no one objected when we wanted to go for a walk, especially with the dogs. Mine was already 2 and a German Shepherd. So there we were, walking, when we reached a point on our route where there was another road coming in from the left and from higher ground. Suddenly, we felt pebbles being thrown at us. Just a few, no big ones, but we heard them and felt them. We looked up the road to the left and saw 2 guys walking towards us. So we started walking a little faster, because we wanted to talk in peace. These guys were probably between 20 to 25. We heard them talking, and they stopped once they reached our road, and one started walking up, back the way we'd come, and the other towards us. My friend got scared and asked me if we could please run. She had asthma, so I really didn't want to in case something happened to her, but she was really scared. So I gave her the leash to my dog and lifted up her puppy and said, "Sure." We looked back and saw that the guys had stopped and were talking from afar to each other. Then we heard a car, and the guy closest started jogging up to his friend. Then we were panicked. We started running like crazy, came to another road a bit further away that went in to the right into a forest. We ran down the road a little bit, and then just right out into the forest. As soon as we were down in the forest, we heard the car coming after us, down the road. We saw the lights and how the car was speeding past where we were hidden. We went back to the main road again and started running further down, until we saw some houses. It was night, so people there were sleeping already, and we ran behind one of the houses and hid. I felt my heart racing, and my friend started crying silently and having trouble breathing. So I decided that since I had no trouble breathing, I'd run out and lure them away if they came closer. I could make some noise and have my friend knock on the house doors whilst they were trying to get me. I told my friend my plan, and just as I'd finished, we heard the car coming closer to the house and stopping. And then some doors opened and closed, and we heard them talking. Where did they go? You couldn't even catch them? Let's have a look around here, but be silent so we don't wake anyone. I ran out on the road and started running back the way we'd came, and they started yelling and ran to the car to go after me. My friend managed to start knocking on the doors like crazy, and some lights turned on in the neighbour's house, after which the car drove away in the opposite direction. I ran back to my friend's and checked on her. She was alright, and we stayed behind the house for a good 15 minutes before we went home the fastest way. It later turned out that the people living in the house we knocked at were on vacation at the time, and it was an automatic porch light that turned on. Lucky for us. Number 5. When I was in high school, I had 2 friends that would hang out with me on a regular basis. We'd ride the bus together and everything, as we each lived about a 5-minute walk from each other. So, one day I ended up being sick and not being able to make it to school. It was a Friday and apparently there was a homework assignment from our science teacher that needed to be done by Monday. One of my friends, Lisa, had the same science class as me and had taken my copy to give to me. She was walking to my house and planned to meet my other friend Rachel afterwards. So, my parents had taken one of my sisters somewhere for the afternoon, leaving me to watch my little brother and other sister. We were told never to answer the door unless Mum and Dad were at home. I didn't know Lisa was coming. I didn't get a cell phone until the next year. So when she knocked on the door, I didn't answer. My room was upstairs and I had a window overlooking the front yard and the driveway. So I opened the blinds to see Lisa starting to walk away. I opened the window and called down to her. She explained the assignment and had the paper to give me. She stopped midway through explaining it to me, looking over her shoulder and looking very uncomfortable. She looked back up at me and asked if she could come in for a while. We usually weren't allowed to have people over without parent permission. I told her I wasn't allowed to invite her in. She gets more frantic, seeming extremely nervous, asking again, almost begging this time. That's when I see him. The guy had walked down the hill she'd just come from. He was an African American man of average height. I don't remember what clothes he was wearing, but there were 3 things that set me on edge. Number 1, his creepy, wicked grin he kept the whole time. Number 2, he was wearing bright pink latex gloves. Yes, latex. And number 3, he was holding one of those long, heavy flashlights that you see security and police sometimes use. He just stood there in the middle of the road, staring and grinning. When Lisa asked a 3rd time, this time almost in tears, the man let out a terrifying laugh. The only way I can describe it is he sounded like a villain. It started as a low chuckle and got louder over time. At that, I looked down at Lisa and told her to get to the door. I sprinted down the stairs to the front door, opening it and letting her in. The guy was still laughing, but this time I saw him walking towards us. After Lisa was inside, I slammed the door and locked the deadbolt and the handle. Seconds later, he started pounding on the door, and I mean pounding. This guy starts ringing the doorbell over and over in rapid succession. While pounding, he started jiggling the handle in the midst of this stuff as well. We ran up to my room and locked the door. My sister and brother were in there as well, since they were up there when this whole thing started. They didn't know what was going on and they were getting scared. Lisa was in tears. I looked out the window hoping the guy would leave, but he didn't. The pounding and ringing kept going, and I was just working up the courage to leave my room, run to the kitchen and use the landline to call the police when I saw my dad's truck stopping at the mailbox down the road. I yelled in relief as I grabbed the nearest hard object and sprinted down the stairs. Partway down the hall, the knocking stops. I throw open the door knowing my dad was in the driveway by now, ready to smash this guy's skull in. The guy had already walked down the steps where my dad was, acting really nervous. He claimed he was selling magazines. My dad told him no, and the guy just chuckled sheepishly and walked away. Later, I learned that Rachel had been about to leave her house to meet Lisa when she saw the guy walking down the street. Something about him set her on edge, and she locked herself in her house and decided not to go out. From that day on, the three of us would tell the story and refer to this guy as Mr. Mittens. Those latex gloves still creep me out every time I think about them. Number 6. I began my job a year after we moved from Fairview, Alberta to High Prairie. It was the first one I'd ever had. The pay was good, and for 2 hours I played with a pair of the sweetest yet troublesome little munchkins ever, and the kids were a handful too. 2 dogs named Winston, a black terrier, and an oversized black lab puppy dubbed Bandit, and a pair of kids aged 8 and 5. They kept me busy every day I worked. So often I was tired, and my dad would pick me up sometimes, but mostly I walked home. The house I worked at and my block was divided by the large Catholic school, and I would often cut through the schoolyard where it was lit to get home. However, winter prevented me from going my usual route, as snow drifted into thick and impressive banks. So I would cut through the large ball pad on the other side of the school, which was lit dimly and led to the main gates. It gets dark quickly around 4:30 in December. When I was working, and I had walked home by myself one particular Friday, earlier that day I noticed a guy in a dark hoodie, which was surprising in -10-degree weather, lingering outside of the house. I really didn't pay any attention, as I had 2 fighting dogs and 2 hyperactive kids to deal with at the time. My employer came back around 5 as usual, paid me, and I was off. It was exceptionally dark that evening. A new moon, if I recall. I was taking my secondary route since the other one was blocked by snow, when I felt like I was being watched. I looked behind but didn't see anything, so I continued onwards. I was just halfway through the ball pad when my eye caught a second shadow looming to my left. I whirled around just in time to see a towering individual in the black hoodie. I immediately took off through the snowy gates, and he gave a chase silently. I was more than terrified. I didn't stop until I slipped and fell on some ice, and I looked up only to see the figure a yard behind me. I was nearly at my house by then and hurried up the driveway. Luckily, my own dog Mandy starts to bark as she always did when I arrive, which frightened off my pursuer. I told my parents, and for the rest of the week I was driven to and from my workplace. I kept an eye out for the individual. However, he or she never showed up again. To this day, if I have to walk home alone and in the dark, I always look over my shoulder or make sure that my dog is nearby. To the creepy guy that chased me, let's never meet. Ever. Number 7. My mother took off at 17 and went travelling on her own for years. She's got some crazy stories, but my favourite is when she ended up renting a room in a house in Brisbane. It was an old 2-storey that was a bit isolated on a large block, but had neighbours up the road. When she first moved in, the existing tenant, Sharon, was really nice and seemed normal. But after a few weeks, Sharon started getting creepy. She tried to convince my mum that the house is haunted and things would go missing and turn up broken. There would be weird noises during the night, and every now and again a piece of furniture would end up in a random place. Like a dining chair would be found on top of the table. My mum's tough, and assuming it was all Sharon playing tricks, she eventually caught her in the act standing outside the bedroom making stupid ghost noises. Mum demanded she stop messing with her and her things, but not only did Sharon continue to deny she was behind the mischief, but after being accused, she became really bitter and hard to live with. Sharon started unplugging the house phone and taking it with her when she left the house. All went to bed, so Mum could never use it. She would steal my mum's keys and money, remove all the food from the house, get drunk and scream her head off at all hours of the night. After not very long of this craziness, Mum of course tells the landlord she's leaving, and after reporting Sharon's behaviour, the landlord decides to evict Sharon as well. They're given 2 weeks to vacate, but that night, while Mum's sleeping, she hears something outside her bedroom door. She opens it to find Sharon with a massive knife, telling her that neither of them is leaving, ever. Mum slams the door, locks it and freaks out. It's the 70s, so no mobile phone to save her. So while Sharon is trying to bust the door down, Mum jumps from the second-story window, breaking her ankle. She limps to the bushes and hides. A few minutes later, Sharon is outside trying to find her, but does half a job of it, and goes back in the house without finding her. Mum stays put until she sees Sharon leaving for work the next morning, and with no keys, money or phone, has to drag herself to the neighbour's place. Apparently the neighbours weren't even home, so Mum sat on their porch for hours waiting for help. I'm not sure what happened to you, Sharon from Brisbane, but let's not meet. I would just like to say thank you to everyone for liking and commenting on my videos. I would also like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I have currently gone past 1,000 subscribers and am headed towards 2,000 at a very rapid speed, which is absolutely fantastic. If you would like to submit any of your own stories, feel free to leave a comment below or email them to me. My email address is in the description box below. I will be uploading more regularly from now on and hope that you all stay tuned for more videos. And remember, stay sinister.